This morning's guest is a Greek boy with a lot of Who is he? You'll meet him coming up next on All American People. Good morning. Welcome to All American People. This morning we're at Cagney's old place near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, the vacation destination of the year, as voted on by visitors to allamericancities.com. We're focused on the Beach Music Hall of Fame, and we're visiting with the chairman of its committee, Dino Thompson, a local author and restaurateur, and clearly our host today and all week, Cagney's old place. This place is amazing.
We think so.
It is incredible. And I saw on the big sign as I was pulling up early this morning, celebrating more than 35 years.
We opened in '76. This is our 35th season. Yeah.
Incredible.
I leased this land in 1968. There wasn't a thing up here except a few houses. This was the Chestnuts own this area. That's why it's called Chestnut Hill here. And I leased it because it was on the bend. You could see it from a mile away. I thought that was great. I had no idea there'd be 90 restaurants in this area someday. But it took me about 6-7 years to get the money to build here. So I probably went to at least 60 or 70 different banks and went to some of those 10 times.
Oh yeah.
So it took a while for me to get the money. I was pretty young. Everybody told me it's too far out.
Right.
It's too weird. It's you've got no fried food, no hush puppies. You need some fishnet decor, and I just couldn't get the money. But I finally shamed a banker at Coastal Federal that I'd grown up with. Excuse me. Shamed him into giving me a loan, and literally did embarrass him into giving me a loan.
No.
Just by.
Now, can you tell us about it? Is that off the record or?
Well, no, it was George Cooper at Coastal Federal. He was the only one out of the 60 or 70 bankers that didn't say no. He would say, if we ever loan any restaurant money, Dino, it's going to be you.
Wow.
And so that was as close to yes as I'd get. And one day, one of the tellers that worked there, who I knew quite well, she said, I hate to tell you this, but George just loaned Albert Herring $150,000 to build a Wiener King. And I said, a Wiener King? And she said, yeah. And I said, that's a restaurant, right? She said, yeah. So I scooted straight down there, and I'm sitting there waiting for him to let me in the office. I'm looking through the glass walls, and he knows he doesn't want to see me. And he kept saying, I'm busy, and I kept saying, I'll wait. And finally he let me in, and all I said, I knew it was a Wiener King, but I kept saying Weenie King. I said, George, a Weenie King? A Weenie King? And he said, what are you talking about? And finally I said, I know you lent Albert Herring $150,000. I said, you said I'd be the first restaurant. He said, but I've known Albert all my life. And I said, you've known me all your life.
Yeah.
And he said, all right, just bring me that set of plans, and I'll take it to the board. And I wouldn't leave. I said, you are the board. Just say yes. Just tell me yes. And he said, okay, yes. And that's how I got the loan.
Holy, that is incredible.
Otherwise, I don't think I would have ever got a loan.
Yeah, you would have been leasing the land forever.
But I sort of embarrassed him into giving me a loan. And so here we are 35 years later.
And how about the Wiener King? Is that
the Wiener King's not there anymore. It lasted 4 or 5 years, and it's a Subway or something like that, a sub shop. It didn't last long.
Which I guess happens to a lot of restaurants. You know, we think about, I know you talked about, I saw a piece from that Becky Billingsley had done with you maybe last year, highlighting that a lot of folks step into restaurants. I know we're focused on the Beach Music Hall of Fame. Obviously, we want to get into that, but a lot of restaurants come and go in this area.
Yeah, I've compiled a list of 1,200 restaurants that have come and gone in the Myrtle Beach area, and I'm sure I've missed 200-300. These are just ones I remember. Unfortunately, it's a business with a high turnover, and like I've said before, it's one of the few businesses that people with absolutely no experience except that they eat in restaurants think they can open one. And a lot of people are successful, you know. Sometimes it's just luck. You can be the greatest restaurateur in the world,
Right.
and you're in and out in a year.
Yeah.
And sometimes you absolutely don't know what you're doing and you're packed. So a lot of it is luck. But people do try to jump in there like
Yeah.
you know, nobody tries to be a plumber or an electrician or a
Right.
pharmacist or a doctor, but everybody thinks they can run a restaurant, which sometimes is true.
Well, you know,
Sometimes
my
it
mother's
isn't.
handed me down 7 or 8 great recipes, and I've been thinking about getting into the business.
That's usually somebody has a little decorating skill, or that they've got 7 or 8 recipes and they want to open a restaurant. It's a confining business, so everybody needs to think twice before they jump in.
Tell us about, and again, I know we're on Beach Music Hall of Fame, and obviously later this week, Rose Rock is going to be with us.
Yeah.
One of your board members on Thursday, she'll be with us. We'll have a chance to talk to her a little more
Terrific
about
lady.
the Beach Music Hall
Terrific
of Fame,
lady.
the tremendous event coming up on May 15th. But Cagney's old place, I've never seen anything like this.
Well, we collected, I mean, I started collecting what my dad called junk. And I didn't have enough money to build a restaurant, but every now and then I had a couple $100 to buy this or that, and I had it stored in my dad's house, my apartment, people's garages, and my dad, a little old Greek fellow with a good accent, he'd say, "What is all this junk?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to build a restaurant." He says, "You're building it from the inside out." I said, "That's all I can afford is the inside out." And I remember the day before we opened, my partner, another Dino,
Oh, another Dino.
another Greek Dino like me, and we're walking around and we're showing our old men. His father was named Chris, and my dad was Tony, and we're showing him this came from the Ocean Forest, this came from the hotel in Buffalo, this came from a bandstand in Baltimore, and we're showing him all the stuff, and my dad sounded so disinterested. And finally, at the end of the conversation, he looked at me and said, he blew some smoke in my face, and he said, "In 50 years, somebody's going to say all this crap came out of Cagney's." And that didn't make me feel too good, but he's close to right, you know.
Wow.
Someday somebody
Wow.
will say that. We'll have a good auction here.
That's I'm sure it'll be around a lot longer than that, but that's a very poignant comment that he at least highlighted
Yeah.
that the restaurant will be around for a long time. He must have really
Well,
thought you were going to be successful.
I guess he did. He was a pretty funny guy. He was a pretty laid-back guy. And that's the reason I wrote the book.
Yes, that's
Because of my dad. He was a great storyteller, and he had a steel trap memory. I have a ridiculously good memory. It's hard for me to even forget anything except my keys occasionally. But when he hit about 85 or 86, he started messing up some of his great stories. And I remember one day we were sitting at the dinner table, and he was telling us the story of how he came to Myrtle Beach in 1946. And he was confusing the dates and the people and places, and it made me a little sad because he'd always had a great memory with
yeah.
great detail. So I went home that night and I wrote that story as detailed as I can remember him telling me his own story
right.
on 6 or 7 pages, and I put it in a blue book. I put a photo in there. I gave it to Dad like I'd turn in a term paper, and he read it and got the biggest kick out of his own story. And he'd just, every month or so, he'd say, "Write some more, write some more."
Yes.
And so I'd write another story. I'd remember the crazy characters in the cozy corner where we grew up. I'd write that. I'd put it in a blue book. I'd find some old vintage photographs, stick it in there. And I did this for about 3.5 years. I wrote about 200 pages of stories for my dad to amuse my dad.
No.
And then he died at 90. And so I had a big pile of stories sitting around, and I decided to keep writing. Ended up writing
Yes, I'm gonna hold
592
this up.
pages.
592 pages. Well, there's some hilarious quotes about that 592 pages from different folks throughout. Greek Boy, Growing Up Southern, a Myrtle Beach memoir. And of course, folks really need to get a copy of this, because there are, even just to read the quotes on the back, the quotes on the inside, some of the great quotes, even quotes from your mother
Yeah.
and others, are hilarious. I mean, for folks, whether they knew you or not, they would enjoy. I actually got a copy of the book from Dr. Hilda Carter, who's also on the Beach Music Hall of Fame advisory committee there with you, and just to hear her talk about it, she's read it, of course, many times, and to hear her talk about it is an absolute hoot. Where would a viewer get a copy of the book?
Well, we have one here at Cagney's and one at Flamingo Grill. It's also available if you have a Nook or a Kindle or an iPad. You can download it for $8.99.
Oh, great.
On
Not
there, which
reasonable.
some people like ebooks.
All 592 pages.
All 592
And the
pages.
pictures, now for folks who don't use ebooks or aren't familiar with them, do the pictures come with
Yeah,
them?
there's about 90 photographs.
Great.
Some cute, funny photographs in there.
Yes, yes.
All black and white.
All black and white. Well, it is a hilarious. I mean, obviously, I didn't have a chance to read it prior to getting you on, but just to get into it a little bit, it is magnificent.
Well, we had a great childhood here. Everybody will tell you the same thing. I lived over top a restaurant and a movie theater and a drugstore. Cab stand on this side. Across the street was Chapin Company. Across the street was the amusement park and the pavilion. So it was paradise for a kid like me. I, walked to the pavilion every night and watched the jitterbugs. Pretty soon, my uncle was a 1953 jitterbug champion, South Carolina and North Carolina jitterbug champion. So
Wow.
I remember we were standing there and I was watching some cute girls dance, and he looked at me and he said, "You've got to learn how to dance. It says something good about you." And he said, "If you can dance," it was about 1,000 people around the jukebox. It was a summer night. He said, "You can ask the cutest girl out here to dance, and she'll dance with you if she thinks you can dance."
Right.
So I figured I need to learn how to dance quickly.
Get on it quick.
Yeah. So it's, and we all enjoyed, and that was such a safe, innocent era.
Right.
We could wander around the pavilion all night, and it was just a different era. So the 50s, the late 40s, all through the 50s, through about the mid 60s is probably the most innocent era that we'll ever have or will ever have. Things have changed quite a bit,
Is there
unfortunately.
some part of the beach, some part of this area that is still has been home for you for almost 65 or 65 years now? Is there some part of the beach that gives you that sense still, or is it other than being in Cagney's?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that are still here, but of course, the ocean forest is gone. That was a social epicenter of our lives here for the sophisticated and for tourism, and the amusement park and the pavilion
Right.
was the absolute amusement happening,
Mecca.
a mecca for the. And those are gone, so it has changed. Everybody that grew up here misses those things, and it's sad when we talk about it.
Yes.
I have a lot of things in Cagney's from the ocean forest. All these dividers and those white pilasters, the doorway, the main doorway, the doorway to the dancing room, the doorway to the restroom, all came out of the ocean
That's all
forest.
from the ocean
Yeah.
forest. Son of a gun. Well,
Yeah, we rescued those while they were wiring it for implosion. We were tearing out some of the doorways and buying these dividers, and my partner and I.
that is tremendous. Well, do you ever have folks come in and look? I mean, this is almost like a museum for others.
Yeah, we do.
Folks that want to take a tour just to go through it and probably want to hear it from you. I
We
assume
do.
they need to stay and eat, hang out.
Yeah, we're always willing. It's enjoyable for us when somebody to come in and appreciate it and want to know the history. So we'll walk around and describe everything, and everything has a pretty good story.
Right.
All these things are rescued from pretty cool places, other hotels, restaurants.